Someone is sitting with their phone in their hand right now, and they are not using it the way people use a phone when they are bored. They are picking it up, unlocking it, staring at one place on the screen, and then freezing. Not scrolling, not answering someone else, not checking the time, freezing. And the strange part is, their thumb already knows where it wants to go. It knows the contact, it knows the chat, it knows the call button, but every time they get close to actually doing it, something in their body locks up like they are standing at the edge of a door they cannot pretend is closed anymore. Okay, give me a second with this one, because the first card coming through here is the rising sun, but it is showing up in this upside down, delayed, almost withheld position. And I want to be careful with how I say that. I am not reading this as a prediction. I am reading it as symbolism. Psychologically, this is someone who knows the truth is rising inside them, but they are still trying to keep the curtains shut. That is the feeling. Something wants to come into the light, but they are terrified of what happens once it does. Some of you have been here before and you know how these readings move. Some of you just landed here from your feed with no idea why this title made you stop. Either way, stay with this one all the way through, because the ending is going to change what this phone image means. Right now, they are not ignoring you because they forgot. They are not silent because they feel nothing. They are silent because the first sentence feels impossible. They have written it in their head so many times. Hey, no, too casual. Can we talk? Too serious. I know I should have said this earlier. Too exposing. So they delete it before it even becomes real. And then they put the phone down. But here is the part that matters. They keep picking it back up. And that is the loop. Pick it up. Get close. Feel the truth rise. Put it down. And I need you to understand that is not random. That is not boredom. That is not them casually checking to see who posted something or who liked something or what time it is. That is their body approaching something their mind is still trying to negotiate. Because now I am looking at this Three of Cups reversed. And again, I am not saying this like, oh, this card means this exact thing is going to happen. No. I am reading the feeling of it. And the feeling here is a connection that should have been simple or lighter or easier to celebrate, but somehow it got tangled. Something that should have felt safe started feeling complicated. Three of Cups upright has that sense of reaching out, reunion, warmth, shared emotion, people coming back into the same room with open hands. But reversed like this, in this moment, it feels like the room is still there, but someone is standing outside of it with their hand on the doorknob, listening, not walking in, not leaving either. That is exactly what this phone is. It is not just a phone in their hand, it is a doorway they keep touching, and every time their screen lights up, every time your name or your chat or your contact is sitting there in front of them, something in them moves forward before they can stop it. Then something else pulls back. Approach. Fear, retreat. Again, and that is why the silence feels so strange on your end. Because part of you can feel that it is not empty. You may not have words from them. You may not have a missed call yet. You may not have the message sitting there. But energetically, emotionally, psychologically, something is not still. Something is pacing. Something is circling the same sentence over and over again. And the thing that keeps stopping them is not just pride. It would be easier. if it were only pride. It would be easier if this were just someone saying, I do not want to be the one to break first. But this is deeper than that, because the second they imagine being honest with you, their body remembers what happened the last time they tried. And what I am seeing with this Six of Swords reversed is that they have been trying to move away from this conversation without actually moving through it. That is the difference. Because upright, this card has the feeling of leaving something behind, crossing into calmer water, getting distance from whatever was too heavy to keep standing in. But reversed like this, it feels like someone who keeps telling themselves they have moved on, while emotionally they are still sitting in the same boat, not rowing forward, not going back, just drifting in the place between. And that is why the phone keeps ending up in their hand, because part of them knows there is something they never crossed. There is a conversation they avoided. There is a truth they stepped around. There is a sentence they left unfinished. And now every quiet moment keeps bringing them back to it. But listen, this is not just fear of you saying no. That is there, maybe. Of course that is there. Nobody wants to press call and feel the coldness on the other end. Nobody wants to send a message and watch it sit there, exposed, unanswered. But that is not the deepest block. The deeper block is that they are afraid one honest sentence will open the whole thing. They are afraid I miss you will turn into I should not have handled it that way. They are afraid can we talk will turn into I have been pretending I was fine. They are afraid hey will not stay small, because once the mask slips, it may not go back on easily. And I do not want to romanticize that. Avoidance can hurt people. Silence can confuse people. Holding back the truth does not make the impact disappear. But psychologically, this is someone who knows that contacting you is not a casual action anymore. Their thumb hovers over that button, and their body understands before their mind can make excuses. This is not just a call. This is not just a message. This is them admitting, even to themselves, that they are still connected to something they tried to sail away from. And that is why they freeze. Because reaching you is one thing. Crossing that line inside themselves is something else. And this is where the star reversed comes in, because this card has a very specific feeling in this position. It is not a lack of hope. It is hope they do not trust. That is the difference. Upright, the star has that feeling of opening after something painful. A little bit of softness coming back, a little bit of honesty, a little bit of maybe this can still breathe. But reversed like this, it feels like someone staring at that possibility and immediately doubting it. Like they can see the light, but they do not believe they are allowed to walk toward it. And that is why the first sentence feels so impossible, because the first sentence is not just the first sentence. It is the crack in the whole wall. They can imagine what comes after it. That is the strange part. They can picture the conversation once it has already started. They can imagine explaining themselves. They can imagine saying, I did not know how to say this. They can imagine admitting that they acted colder than they felt. They can even imagine apologizing. But starting? That is where everything locks. Because beginning means they cannot hide behind silence anymore. Beginning means the version of them that seemed fine, detached, unaffected, unbothered has to step aside, and there is another version underneath. the one that missed you, the one that replayed things, the one that wondered if you hated them, or if you stopped caring, or if you were just tired of waiting for them to become honest. And maybe from your side, the silence looked like closure. Maybe you told yourself, okay, they are done. They made their choice. And I understand why you would. Because when someone gives you nothing, eventually your mind starts trying to protect you by calling nothing an answer. But what this is showing me is that their silence may not have been clean closure. It may have been unfinished communication. A sentence stuck behind the teeth. A message written in the nervous system before it ever reaches the screen. And there is something about this that happens at a very specific time. Because this person has already almost called you when the day was ending, when the noise dropped, and there was nothing left between them and the truth. And I keep getting that this does not happen at random hours. It happens when the day stops protecting them, when there is no more noise to hide inside, when the messages from everyone else have slowed down, when the room is quiet, when their phone is too close to their hand, and suddenly your name is not just a name anymore. It becomes a place. It becomes a memory. It becomes a mirror. And now this Queen of Swords reversed is here. And I want to be careful with this because this is not me saying someone is cruel or cold in some simple way. That is too flat. The feeling is sharper than that. This is someone who may have used distance, silence, or a very controlled tone to protect themselves from feeling exposed. Someone who may have acted like they had the final word even when they did not have peace. That is the part. They may have sounded certain before. They may have sounded detached. They may have given you the impression that they had thought everything through and decided exactly where they stood. But reversed like this, the card feels like words that got turned inward. Things they did not say to you became things they keep hearing inside themselves, and certain triggers make it louder. A song that should not still mean anything. A street. A photo. A phrase someone else says in passing. A time of night when they used to hear from you. Something ordinary that suddenly does not feel ordinary at all. And before pride can step in with its explanation, their body has already reached for the phone. That is what I mean. Their mind may say, no, do not do that. Their pride may say, leave it alone. Their fear may say, too much time has passed. But their hand is already moving. Their thumb is already waking up the screen. And when they see your name sitting there, they are not only looking at a contact, they are looking at who they were when they still had access to you. They are looking at the version of themselves that did not have to pretend so hard. And then comes the freeze. Because it is not that they have nothing to say. It is that they know deep down you may no longer answer as the same person they left waiting. And that matters because you may still care. You may still feel something when their name comes up. You may still wonder what they would say if they finally stopped fighting themselves long enough to say it. But caring is not the same as waiting in the same place. That is what this Queen of Pentacles is bringing in. And I like this card here because it does not feel loud. It does not feel like revenge. It does not feel like I am going to prove something. It feels grounded. It feels like someone who has had to come back into their own body after being pulled into someone else's confusion for too long. Maybe you questioned yourself. Maybe you replayed the last conversation more times than you want to admit. Maybe you checked your own phone at certain hours too, wondering if this would be the night they finally broke the silence. And then, slowly, something changed. Not all at once, not dramatically, but quietly. You started returning to yourself. You started realizing that love or care or attachment cannot be the only thing holding a bridge up. There has to be respect there. There has to be consistency there. There has to be enough emotional maturity on both sides to not make one person carry all the uncertainty. And they can feel that. That is the strange part. Even from a distance, they can feel that your energy is not sitting at the door the same way it used to. You are not necessarily closed, but you are not wide open either. And they know that. They know that picking up the phone now is not the same as picking up the phone back when you were still waiting for an explanation with your whole chest. Now, if they call, they are not just returning to warmth. They are returning to someone who has had time to think, someone who has had time to feel the impact, someone who may still be kind, but not as easily reached. And that is why their hand freezes harder now. Because the call they are afraid to make may not begin with romance. It may not begin with, "I miss you." It may begin with the one thing they have been avoiding the most: accountability. And the magician here makes that even more interesting because this is the card of having the tools right in front of you, not somewhere far away, not someday. Right there, the words, the phone, the number, the memory, the ability to act. So when this person tells themselves, "I cannot reach out," I do not think that is completely true. They can. That is actually what makes this so uncomfortable for them. They know they can. They know exactly how to find you. They know what button to press. They know what name to search. They know how little effort it would take for your screen to light up with them on it. But the magician also brings in intention. And intention is where they get stuck. Because there is a difference between contacting you because they want relief and contacting you because they are ready to be honest. There is a difference between missing your presence and being willing to face your pain. And that is the threshold. They may want the comfort of hearing your voice. They may want to know if you still care. They may want the reassurance that the bridge did not fully burn while they were standing back, waiting, avoiding, thinking, overthinking. But they cannot just come toward you for comfort and pretend there is no responsibility attached to the distance they created. Not this time. That rising sun from the beginning keeps coming back in here, but now it does not feel soft. It does not feel like morning light through a window. It feels like exposure because light does not only warm the room, it shows what is in it. And if they call or message or even send something small, pay attention to how they enter the conversation. Do they joke first, trying to make it feel casual? Do they test the water with something vague, like nothing ever happened? Do they ask a question they already know is just an excuse to open the door? Or do they finally let the truths stand there without dressing it up? Because the first thing they say may sound small. It may be one word, it may be your name, it may be, "Hey." But the way they carry that small word will tell you everything about whether they are actually ready. And with this 10 of Wands here, I have to say it like this. Whatever they send first may be small, but the weight behind it is not small. That is the contrast, because this card carries the feeling of someone trying to hold too much at once. Too many unsaid things, too many delayed explanations, too many moments where they could have spoken and did not. And now, all of that weight is trying to fit into one opening line. So do not be surprised if it comes out awkward. Do not be surprised if the first message is not the full truth. It may be, hey. It may be, I saw something and thought of you. It may be a reaction to a story, a question that feels almost too casual, a little excuse, something practical, something that gives them a reason to step through the door without admitting that the door is the whole point. They may call and let it ring once. They may type and disappear. You may see the bubbles show up, vanish, show up again. And I know that can feel frustrating because from your side, it is like, just say it. Just say what you mean. Just stop circling it. But with 10 of Wands, the pressure is exactly why the movement looks clumsy. They are not carrying one sentence. They are carrying the whole history of why that sentence matters. And I want you to stay steady when this happens. Not cold, not reactive. Steady, because the surface wording is not the whole message. The emotional meaning is in the timing, in the hesitation, in whether they disappear again after opening the door or whether they stay there long enough to actually speak. That is what you watch. Not because you are chasing, not because you are waiting with your whole life paused, but because you are observing whether this person is finally willing to set the weight down instead of handing it back to you. Because the phone ringing is not the real moment. The notification lighting up is not the real moment. The real moment is the silence right after they realize you have seen it. Because that silence is where both of you become real. Not in the fantasy of what they might say, not in the fear of what you might feel. In that pause, their name is on your screen, or their message is sitting there, or there is one missed call that came in and disappeared before you could even decide what to do with it. And now both sides know. They reached. You saw. And nobody can pretend the door was not touched. Now, this Knight of Cups comes in, and I want to be very measured with this because, yes, this can be someone coming forward with emotion. This can be an offer. This can be a message that carries feeling underneath it. But a cup in someone's hand is not the same as emotional readiness. That is important because this person may come in softer than before. They may sound warmer. They may try to approach you in a way that feels careful, almost gentle, like they are hoping not to scare the moment away. But you still get to discern. You still get to feel your own body. You still get to decide whether the door opens all the way, halfway, or not at all, because a call is a doorway. It is not a guarantee. It can open into honesty, it can open into closure, it can open into repair, or it can show you that the old pattern is still breathing under nicer words. And that is why this moment feels so charged. One person is finally reaching for the thing they have been avoiding. The other person is no longer standing there with unlimited access in their hands. That is the tension. Their phone is in their hand. Your phone is in yours. The screen lights up. The old silence cracks. But what comes through that crack matters. Does it bring light? Or does it only pull the curtains open for a second before closing them again? That rising sun has been trying to rise through this whole reading, but now we are right at the edge of it. The door is not imaginary anymore. The call is not just an idea anymore. And in the final part, this is where I want you to see what the phone was really showing us from the very beginning. And Seven of Wands reversed is a very honest card to end on because this does not feel like someone charging in with perfect courage. It feels like someone whose defenses are tired. That is the feeling. All the reasons they gave themselves not to say anything are starting to lose strength. All the walls they kept building around the truth are not holding the same way. And that is why the phone mattered from the beginning. It was never just about whether they call. It was about truth trying to cross the distance between avoidance and accountability. That is what you were feeling, not a guarantee, not a promise that everything becomes beautiful the second their name appears on your screen, but pressure, movement, something hidden pressing toward visibility. That rising sun from the beginning was not just light coming in softly. It was the part of the truth that could not stay buried forever. And reversed, delayed, withheld, yes, it took time. It got blocked, it got resisted, it got pushed behind curtains and excuses and pride and fear. But still, it kept rising. And maybe they do call. Maybe your screen lights up and suddenly the silence has a sound. If that happens, listen. Not just to the words. Listen for responsibility. Listen for consistency. Listen for whether they can hold the conversation without making you carry it for them. Because I miss you can be real and still not be enough. Hey can be small and still open something honest. And an apology can sound beautiful. But the real question is what they do after the apology leaves their mouth. And if they do not call, or if they freeze again, I do not want you to feel like you are back in the dark. Because you are not. You have seen the pattern now. You have seen that silence is not always peace. Sometimes silence is avoidance. Sometimes it is fear. Sometimes it is someone standing at a door they still have not learned how to open. But you are not required to live at that door. That is the ending. The phone was not showing you someone else's power over you. It was showing you the exact place where their truth meets your self-respect. And whether they press call or not, you are no longer waiting in the dark.